Welcome to FX Options University, recorded live at the International Securities Exchange, the world's largest equity options exchange. Join the industry's top trading professionals as they provide insight and strategies for trading in the currency markets using FX options. FX options are a low-risk alternative to hedging currency moves in any market condition.
Welcome, everyone. This is Steve Meisinger, your host for today's ISE webinar. Today I'm pleased that we have Mike Tosaw with us. Mike is an investment advisor from Know Your Options. He'll be talking about going long in the currency markets using FX options. I just want to go through a brief disclosure document, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Just so everyone knows that I would highly recommend you get a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. You can get that through your broker. You can call Options Education or go to optionseducation.org. You can call 1-888-OPTIONS. Options involve risk and are not suitable for everyone. And please remember that we are just using this as education, so we are not making any recommendations. Taxes, margin, and commission are, of course, not included, and those are very important factors. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mike Tosaw from Know Your Options. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, everyone, for the standing ovation that I just got. You might not know it, but as I always tell people on the webinars, we can actually see through your screen. So thank you for everyone standing up and clapping. That was a very nice, warm welcome. But anyway, all jokes aside, the other thing that I want to mention, just to kind of reemphasize what Steve had said, we also are strong believers in the characteristics and risks of standardized options. We strongly recommend that you read that document. You can get it on our website at knowyouroptionsinc.com. You can get it at ISE.com. You can get it in a lot of places. So I'd strongly recommend that you read that document in great detail before doing any option trades. Now, a little bit about, just to kind of set the table for what we're going to be going through today, these are the ticker symbols for the ISE FX options. And with that, let's say that you had an opinion on the Aussie dollar, the Brazilian real, the pound, the loonie, the euro, the yen, the peso, whatever the case may be. What I'd like you to do, or I'd encourage you to do, is either write this down as I'm kind of talking about it right now to kind of give you an idea of it, or you can get this on ISE.com. It's a nice little handy reference guide, so to speak, in case you have an opinion or you want to trade one of these currencies. To give you an idea of this, you can see how we have the two symbol columns. We have the one on the left that you can see AUX at the top for the Aussie dollar, and then the one on the right where you see AUM at the top for the Aussie dollar. The one on the left is dollar-based. The one on the right is based upon the currency, the overseas currency. So, for example, EUU is based upon the euro, whereas EUI is the US dollar compared to the euro. So with that in mind, just kind of keep this, or like I said, write it down or go to ISE.com. It's a handy little reference guide. So when you have the reason to trade an option on a currency, you can go to your brokerage account and you type in this symbol for the underlying, and it would work just like you would do it for any index option. Type in this symbol and you will see the option chain for these specific options. Now, for today's points to ponder, what I want to go through today are some ways with which you can use the currency option market in your longer-term investment accounts, just for the various reasons, as just kind of an alternative way of doing it instead of just buying foreign stocks or instead of just buying foreign bonds. Not that I'm against that, but I'll kind of go through my opinions on both of those as we go. But this is kind of, we have some unique ways, in our opinion, of how we like to get exposure to currency, and we like the ISE FX options. So for today's points to ponder, we're going to start off with some assumptions for today's examples, just so we can kind of set the table for everything. And I'm going to try and make everything as simple as possible. and so we can get the concept of things. My goal for today is to have you to walk away with just the concept of some of these strategies that we do. The specific recommendations, that's one thing that we really don't do unless you're a specific client of ours, but the concept is what I want you to go home with today after leaving this webinar. Okay, I guess you probably already are home watching this anyway in a lot of cases, but when you leave this webinar, we want you to have the concept of it. When is a money market not really a money market? We're going to go through that, and with that point, we're going to be going through how currency actually affects everyone. Earlier before this presentation, Steve and I were talking about how currency prices can definitely be a factor for Canadians that live within an hour of the U.S. border, and reasons as to why you would want the Canadian currency to do better or more poorly, or whatever the case may be, depending on where you live. We're going to briefly open the can of worms of buying options versus selling options. Now, we're not going to get into a big debate on that, but what we are going to do is just kind of talk a little bit about both sides of that argument, just because that we want to set the table for some of the strategies with which we're doing. We're going to talk about and raise the point, are you really diversified? I've mentioned in previous webinars on the ISE site how just because you have large caps, small caps, and mid cap stocks doesn't necessarily mean you're diversified. And then we're going to go through the bottom line with any reason as to why you would want to look at any currency. What if the greenback goes up, down, or stays the same? And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about what we do at Know Your Options very briefly. Now, let's start off by going over some assumptions for today's presentations. First off, we're going to assume that every trade is done in a non-taxable account, such as an IRA, whether it's a SEP, a simple, a traditional, or Roth, whatever the case may be. We're going to assume that trades are done in an account like that. The reason is that I don't want to get into tax issues for today's presentation. However, I know with my clients, I strongly recommend that you work with a tax advisor, and I typically come up with strategies and I factor in the taxes for my clients when we come up with a strategy. So I would strongly recommend that you do the same. We're also not going to factor in commissions. Commissions are a very real thing, and you need to factor that into any trading strategy with which you do. For today's presentation, we're not going to assume commissions because I'm going out on a limb and guessing that there's more than one broker out there represented in this audience. We want to keep it simple. We also want to assume that we get filled on every trade that we enter. In reality, anyone who's ever traded before knows that that's not the case, but for today's presentation, in the interest of keeping it simple, we want to have that assumption in there. And then finally, we want to have the assumption that either we hold the option until expiration or we get out of it before expiration. It'll be indicated when I'm going through some examples what could happen at different points, but we'll have both assumptions. Now, once again, you obviously need to factor these into your own personal situation, but because we have a large crowd today, we're not able to go through everyone's personal trading situation. So with that, just make sure that you kind of take a look at these before doing anything.
Thank you for participating in this week's session. Please join us again next week. Get trading ideas, exchange rates, webinars, news, and commentary. Visit www.fxoptions.com. ISE FX Options can be easily traded through all options-enabled brokerage accounts. These exchange-listed securities are cash-settled in U.S. dollars and have a European-style exercise.